We're in the operating room at the end of the day, and I want to show you something special. This is a hernia mesh, a lightweight plastic material that we insert in you to help repair your hernia defect. It creates a matrix for scars to form, and it reinforces your own natural tissues, ultimately healing the hernia. So we're back in the office, and today we're gonna have some real talk about meshes in hernias. My name is Dr. Rich Hills, and you're watching my channel, Knife Skills. I'm often asked when a patient sees me in consultation, am I gonna have a mesh with my hernia repair? And if I do, what are the risks of having a mesh? Well, before we get started, let's first talk about what a hernia is. A hernia is a defect through the abdominal wall where organs such as the colon, small bowel, bladder can herniate through. Now, the most common thing to herniate through is actually just simply fat. And when that organ or tissue gets stuck, we call that incarceration, not to be confused with strangulation. And that's a surgical emergency. Now, most hernias are something that develop over time. Certainly some babies are born with hernias, but generally hernias form as a result of failure of your natural tissues. And that concept's super important. Because it's failure of your tissues, simply sewing those tissues together is unlikely to result in a durable hernia repair. That's where meshes come in. A mesh offers reinforcement and allows your scar to form, repairing the hernia. I very often use the analogy of a mesh being the rebar and your body's scar being the concrete. Concrete alone without reinforcement isn't as strong. And same is true about your hernia repair. Having a mesh plus your scar tissue creates a strong and durable repair in the long run. Now, not every hernia requires a hernia mesh. Certainly small ones like umbilical hernias, which you're born with, can be repaired with stitches alone. But anything larger, and certainly those that are post-surgical and large groin hernias, do ultimately require a hernia mesh. Now, in addition to size, technique has become a factor. More and more surgeons are focusing on minimally invasive surgical techniques like laparoscopic hernia repairs or robotic hernia repairs, and those almost always require a mesh to be placed. And because so many surgeons are focusing on those techniques, fewer and fewer surgeons are doing tissue-based or non-hernia mesh repairs, and that skill is starting to fade. Now, where I live, there's a hospital very close called the Shouldice Clinic, and they're experts in tissue-based hernia repairs. And if I have a patient who's interested in having that kind of repair and they want to avoid mesh, I encourage them to see the Shouldice Clinic and get a second opinion. Now, sometimes people ask, what is a hernia mesh made of anyway? Well, hernia meshes are made from a bunch of different materials, but the most common types are plastic, specifically polypropylene or plastic number 5, which you see all over your household, and polyester. Yes, that very same polyester that makes up your grandfather's suit. So now that we know why we place a hernia mesh and what meshes are made of, it's important to understand what are the risks associated with a hernia mesh. Well, the most common problem associated with that type of repair is recurrence. Although hernia meshes are designed specifically to reduce the frequency of recurrences, and in fact, the literature tells us that 50% of hernias that are repaired without a mesh will oftentimes recur, whereas only 2% with the mesh will, there's still that 2% risk that despite you having a mesh repair, you're still gonna have a recurrence. Another risk of concern is the risk of a mesh infection. Since we're placing a foreign material in the body, there's always a risk that bacteria could make the mesh their home. This can be a real problem where it's difficult to treat and actually get rid of the bacteria that is incorporated into the mesh. Very often you have to have repeat surgery and have the mesh completely removed to reduce and prevent the complications of that mesh infection. Now, fortunately, newer types of mesh that are lightweight and newer techniques like laparoscopic or robotic surgery seem to be reducing the risk of mesh infections, so that's something that we can be excited about for the future. One of the most feared complications is mesh erosions, and this has been the issue that probably gave meshes its bad rap, and maybe why you're here watching this video right now. You see, in the 90s, meshes were used very often to reinforce the abdominal wall for other reasons other than just hernias. They're often used to treat incontinence or rectal or vaginal prolapse. And those meshes were placed close to sensitive tissues, where the plastic mesh itself could erode into those organs, causing chronic pain and other fistula complications. And certainly, using meshes for hernia repairs is a lower risk when it comes to erosions. The risk of infection and the risk of erosions are relatively uncommon, but they're not zero. And so it's very important that you discuss with your surgeon what kind of mesh and what kind of technique they're going to be using if they're repairing your hernia. At the end of the day, most people are going to require a mesh to have a durable repair. And it's something to be aware of and not necessarily fearful of when you're making a decision about your hernia repair. Thank you for watching. My name is Dr. Rich Hillsden, and this channel is Knife Skills. If you're interested in learning more about hernias and how we repair them and why we repair them, click on this video below. I'd love to see you over there. Once again, thank you for watching and have a great day.